Thanks for joining us in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. This is Laura White Carpenter, and she is an artist and an occupational therapist who uses art to help people on their healing journey. You can see some of her beautiful pieces of artwork here. And Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've been very excited to talk to you and take a look at some of your art pieces. I find your story fascinating, and you are actually part of the Juried Artist Member Invitational, one of the 6 artists at Wickford Art Association's Juried Artists that it's happening right now. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your artwork? You use multiple mediums.
I do. I started out painting, and I do large-scale abstract paintings. Very cheerful stuff, nothing dour, about 3 feet by 4 feet. Then I kind of moved on to ceramics. So you can see different ceramic forms here. Porcelain and raku. And then I've just recently been interested in mixing media. I started off with some driftwood that I've been finding because I've always collected things I find especially on the beach. And then adding porcelain pieces to it. And then even more recently, in the last month, I've been going to the steel yard in Providence, and I've learned how to weld. I've done introduction to welding, but I have actually created about a 5-foot tall piece, which is in the invitational show.
Oh my goodness.
So I have to give a lot of credit to the steel yard for teaching me that art form, but it's really going to transform what I do, I think, because I can go really large now.
Oh my goodness. You kind of just have your hands on everything. I've just looked at your website and almost had to pull myself away because I just was drawn into so much of your art.
Thank you.
It's very inspiring. It's very engaging. The colors that you use, the textures that you use are very, I mean, it's so engaging. It's absorbing. Just the pieces that you brought here are so beautiful. I mean, tell me a little bit about some of what you brought, and you want to touch it too. You want to touch it.
It's okay. It's not that fragile.
I'm gonna try not, so I don't break stuff, right, Tony?
There's a lot of epoxy on some of these pieces. Ceramics are fired twice in a kiln. For raku ceramics, which is what this is and what these are, raku ceramics are fired in a kiln about 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you go on to either glaze it or not glaze it, which is the case here, and then you put it in an outdoor kiln. It's a gas-fired kiln. You rapidly heat the kiln about 45 minutes. It goes to about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And you remove the pieces of ceramic with tongs and fireproof clothing. And in the case of glazed work, you put it into a metal can or bin full of wood shavings, newspaper, etc., and it combusts and it creates this effect here, the metallic effects here.
And so that's what gives it its pop.
It does, and it's really almost uncontrollable. So these colors, it's always kind of a magic trick, I guess. Yeah, really.
Another magic trick. Yeah, cool.
When you open the kiln and you see what you have, and sometimes it's a wonderful surprise. Sometimes you're back at the drawing board. In the case of this one, it was also fired in the kiln a second time, but when I pulled it out, I didn't put it into a sealed container. I left it out, and then I put feathers. I burned feathers onto the surface, and it's a permanent mark there. So that's the raku method of ceramics.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about some of the work that you do with art and talk about the other aspect that you do, because you're an occupational therapist and you help others through your art. Tell me a little bit about that side to you.
Thank you. A long time ago, I was trained as an art therapist, but I actually work as an occupational therapist now at Butler Hospital. I work in the senior specialty unit, which is an inpatient unit. But however, there's art being done on every aspect of the campus, partial hospitalization programs, inpatient units, the emergency room, the public access areas, and the art is open to everybody. What we're doing is we're using art not as an end product. You may love what you've created, but it's really a way to express yourself, and it's really more the process of creating your art. I work with people who are up to 102 years old doing this, and then I work with much younger people.
And how can art help people in their healing process? And how do you see that? I mean, can you really see it happening? I feel like that has to be a rewarding feeling.
Absolutely, it's delightful. I absolutely so enjoy my job. It doesn't even feel like a job. A lot of people maybe worked in art when they were children and just wasn't promoted. They had to go out in the workforce and it wasn't seen as a serious job. A lot of people had a real interest in it but then stepped away from it. And then there are others who have never picked up a paintbrush or anything else like that. And just to see the delight in people's eyes when they focus on the artwork, they're able to stay in a room with other people and they're able to concentrate and then talk about what they've created afterwards. It's really just a blessing to witness that every day.
I think it's such a great opportunity and a great outlet for people to be able to do this and for you to be able to share your talent as well, right? I mean, that has to be pretty remarkable.
It really is. And I just so love people being delighted with their own work and just saying, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And that being said, at the hospital, we work in a lot of different art forms. It's not just visual arts. We also work with music and dance and movement, different healing arts such as yoga, tai chi. So, and we're also working on more permanent art to be displayed in the hospital to really create a healing environment.
Oh, that's neat. And is that to work through professional artists or with patients or kind of a mix of both?
It's a mix of both.
That's cool.
Yes. So we're really excited about that.
And that has to be really neat for patients to be able to walk through the hospital and see, and such a positive feeling to say, I've accomplished this, I've made it this far through on my path. Here's something that to showcase, this is how far I made it, and then continue to grow, right?
Absolutely. We actually did a project a few months ago. It was the Self-Portraits project where people tore pieces of magazine and collaged a self-portrait of themselves. And everyone had a very specific backboard to put it on, and then underneath they wrote on a card what makes them unique, what are they proud of. We collected 120 of these of staff, patients, visitors, volunteers there, and all anonymous, and they're all mixed together, and it's such a beautiful therapeutic display to see, and we've actually been able to show this in various venues across the state.
That's really cool. And I mean, that can be kind of hard to be able to take a moment and reflect back on yourself. You know, what am I proud of? What do I look like from within and with that, right?
Yeah, some people were abstract in their creations. Some people were pretty true to form, but the beauty of it is it was almost all heads, and it almost looked like a yearbook of the hospital, a yearbook of healing.
That's so cool. I love that.
And no barriers between staff and patients, or a world-renowned psychiatrist and someone else on staff. It's I don't even know who created these. These were anonymously collected.
That's really neat. What a neat project. And yet, like you said, no barriers between staff and patients. That's a really neat opportunity. And then for other people to be able to see it as well. I love that. So we've talked to you a little bit about your career. Let's talk a little bit more about your artwork, because you've been awarded several awards throughout the country and then locally as well. What is it like for you when you're creating something to be honored with certain awards and jury shows?
It's such a blessing. I really have to credit the state of Rhode Island for really allowing my artistic endeavors and the business of being an artist really blossom. It's a very creative and very supportive community. I did not go to art school, and I found that to be a barrier in other places I've lived.
Oh.
So here I feel like I can continuously grow, and people are always interested, and I can make it my business to try to promote my art. It's just been wonderful. I have so many people I can thank for that. I'll just say thank you, Rhode Island.
That's a good way to put it. And you mentioned hasn't always been the case in other places that you've lived. And I was reading you've lived in quite a few places. You've lived on, what was it, 4 continents? Did I read that right?
Yes.
Tell me just a little bit about your experiences. You've traveled and lived in many places. Tell me just a little bit how that's formed who you've become as a person and who you've become as an artist.
Well, I was probably the shyest person you've ever met until I was in the Peace Corps. I was in Ghana, and really there's no shrinking violet ability. There's nowhere to hide.
You don't have a choice.
You are definitely, everything you do is seen. I'm sure I sounded very silly trying to speak the language. And anyway, it really made me a far less reticent person, and I'm really someone who will just try almost anything. So I've lived in Ghana, I lived in Bhutan, I volunteered in a hospital there, and that really sparked a lot of creativity, both in the architecture and the people's clothing. It's so bright, every surface of the homes was painted, and also there were no art supplies. People just created their own paints through using minerals. It was all natural. So it was just wonderful to see kind of the roots of art being shown everywhere you looked.
I bet that also has kind of inspired you to just use different things around you, right? Now that you're back here in Rhode Island, to find out, going into the metal yard or steel yard and being able to see what's around you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I found the driftwood, obviously. Yeah. I found the gear.
Yeah, this is so cool. This is really neat.
These are all individual iron rings that I've epoxied together. That's why I say it's pretty much impossible to break. Using what other people would think might be trash, I'm turning it into treasure. The iron rings were just in a bucket left to rust. This is actually, this is porcelain that's fired once and it shattered. It was a big mistake on my part. It was a mess in the kiln, but I reused it to make what I call a torch.
This was a mistake?
Yes, it was.
Oh my gosh,
it was
so cool!
It was a totally different form.
What you were going for was not this?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Look at how that bends, and you would never know what this turns out with. It's absolutely incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. So I really like to transform.
That's amazing. And I think what you're doing too is taking pieces and giving them new life, like you said, these iron rings and the gear. I also noticed, because you have some of these ceramics right here on your, did you make that too as well, the necklace?
With a lot of help from a metalsmith. Yes, I made the ceramics, and a metalsmith from Pawtucket helped create it into a necklace.
That's pretty fun. So you can wear your own art as well. I like that.
Thank you.
Laura, it's been really fun chatting with you today. So the Juried Art Show at Wickford Art Association continues through August 20th. It's free and open to the public. What is it like being part of Wickford Art Association?
They are just a lovely organization, so supportive. There are tens or possibly 100 people I could thank from Wickford Art Association for really promoting me and helping me further along on this journey.
It's they've been wonderful, so always a big thanks to them. So again, through August 20th, you as well as 5 other artists down in Whitford, so you can check them out. So Laura White Carpenter, and you can find her website online as well. We'll have a link. So thank you so much for sharing your art with us today and talking about your story. We